Where's your ugly wife and those unfortunate kids of yours, Vincent? My brother Jason asked that question at our family dinner table while my mother laughed into her wine glass and my father just watched with cold, calculating eyes. They had no idea I was recording every word. They had no idea about the emails I'd found in my father's computer 30 minutes earlier, emails that would bring down their entire empire. What happened next turned a humiliating family reunion into the biggest corruption scandal Winston-Salem had seen in decades. Viewers, have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? When the people who raised you turn out to be monsters, what do you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Before we continue, please subscribe, like and share. My name is Vincent Pick. I'm a 34-year-old corporate finance analyst living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I hadn't spoken to my family in almost 3 years. Not by accident, by design. The text from my mother arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports. Family dinner this Saturday. Your father insists you come. 6 p.m. sharp. No warmth. No, we miss you. Just a command dressed as an invitation. I stared at my phone screen, the fluorescent office lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. My wife, Caroline, had been the reason for the silence. My family had never approved of her, not her background, not her appearance, not the fact that she came from a working-class neighborhood in Baltimore instead of the country clubs they preferred. When we got married 4 years ago, only 2 relatives attended. My brother, Jason, had called her that charity case you're obsessed with at Thanksgiving 5 years back. My sister, Bethany, had been worse, asking loudly at Christmas if I was going through a midlife crisis early. But here's what they didn't know: Caroline and I had separated 8 months ago. Not divorced, separated. And our twin daughters, Lily and Grace, were living with her mother in Richmond while we figured things out. The wounds were still fresh, the future uncertain. My family's cruelty had been one fracture point among many. I texted back a single word: fine. The house looked exactly as I remembered, a sprawling colonial in the wealthy suburbs of Winston-Salem, 2 hours north of where I lived. White pillars. Manicured hedges. The kind of place that screamed old money even though my father, Richard, had earned every dollar through ruthless real estate development. As I pulled into the circular driveway, I saw Jason's Tesla and Bethany's Range Rover already parked like monuments to their success. I sat in my car for 3 full minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel. Through the large front windows, I could see them inside, laughing, drinking wine, my mother gesturing animatedly. They looked like a magazine spread for Perfect American Family. I looked down at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. Dark circles under my eyes. A wrinkled dress shirt I'd forgotten to iron. I hadn't been sleeping well since Caroline left. My father had cut me out of the family business 6 years ago when I refused to help him bulldoze a community center in a low-income neighborhood for a luxury condo development. He called me weak and too emotional for real business. Jason, 12 years my senior, had stepped into the role I'd rejected, becoming Dad's golden heir. Bethany, the youngest at 29, had married into another wealthy family and spent her days organizing charity galas that raised money for causes she didn't actually care about. I stepped out of the car. The November air bit at my face. My mother, Patricia, opened the door before I could knock. Her smile was practiced, professional, the same one she used for country club luncheons. "Vincent. You're late." I checked my watch, 6:02 p.m. "Come in, everyone's waiting." The dining room was a tableau of excess: crystal glasses, fine china, a roasted duck at the center of the table that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Jason stood first, his expensive suit fitting him like armor. Well, well. The prodigal son returns. His handshake was too firm, a dominance display. Bethany remained seated, eyeing me over her wine glass with barely concealed amusement. We made it exactly 14 minutes into dinner before the attack came. So, Vincent, Jason said, cutting into his duck with surgical precision. Where's that wife of yours? What was her name again? Carolyn? Catherine? He knew her name. He was playing dumb for sport. Caroline, I said quietly. She couldn't make it. Bethany's laugh was like breaking glass. Couldn't make it? Or didn't want to be seen with us? I remember she wore Kmart shoes to Mom's birthday party. How embarrassing for you. My father leaned back in his chair, watching me with cold eyes. This was a test. My mother busied herself with serving vegetables, pretending she didn't hear. The chandelier above us cast harsh shadows across their faces, turning the dinner into an interrogation under hot lights. And those daughters, Jason continued, smirking now. Lily and, what's the other one? Grace? Are they as unfortunate looking as their mother, or did they get lucky and inherit something from our gene pool? I should have left. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to stand up, walk out, and never look back. But before I could move, my father cleared his throat, the sound he made when he was about to deliver a verdict. Vincent, there's a reason we asked you here tonight. He pulled a manila folder from beside his chair and slid it across the polished table. Your mother and I have made a decision about the estate. I stared at the folder like it might contain a bomb. Jason and Bethany exchanged glances, they already knew what was inside. This whole dinner had been theater, and I was the only one who hadn't read the script. Inside were legal documents. A revised will. I scanned the pages, my legal training from my brief pre-finance law school days kicking in. The bottom line was simple: Jason would inherit the real estate empire. Bethany would receive the investment portfolio and the vacation properties. I would get exactly $50,000, a token amount that was less than what they'd probably spent on Bethany's wedding. We've decided, my mother said softly, not meeting my eyes, that your choices over the past few years have shown you're not aligned with family values. The money will go to those who've proven their commitment. When my grandmother, my father's mother, had died 12 years ago, she'd left a handwritten note with her will. She wanted me to have her shares in the family company. 20%. Worth, at current valuation, around $8 million. My father had challenged it in court, arguing she wasn't of sound mind. He'd won. I'd been too young and too broke to fight back. That 20% had been absorbed into his controlling stake. I'd never forgotten. Jason smiled. Look at it this way, little brother. 50 grand is more than Caroline probably saw in a year before she trapped you into marriage. My mother laughed. Actually laughed. A light, tinkling sound that paired perfectly with her pearl necklace. I closed the folder slowly. My hands were steady now, a strange calm had settled over me, the kind you feel when you finally hit rock bottom and realize there's nothing left to lose. I need to use the bathroom, I said quietly. Don't sulk, Vincent, Bethany called after me. 50,000 is generous considering you abandoned the family business. I walked down the familiar hallway, past family photos that told a lie about our happy history. But I didn't go to the bathroom. I went to my father's study, the one place in the house he thought was impenetrable. The door was locked, as always. But I still had the key from when I was 17, before everything fell apart. Some things he'd never thought to change. Inside, his computer was on, screensaver dancing. I sat in his leather chair and opened his email. The password was the same one he'd used for years, Richard 1959. Arrogant enough to think he didn't need to change it. What I found in the next 90 seconds would change everything. An email chain between my father and a developer named Stuart Henshaw. Subject line: Riverside Community Center acquisition, final phase. My hands started shaking as I read. They were moving forward with the project I'd refused to help with 6 years ago. But this time, they'd gotten creative. The center served 400 low-income families. My father was using shell companies to buy the surrounding properties, artificially driving up costs, forcing the center into bankruptcy. Then he'd buy the land for pennies and build his luxury condos. But here's the part that made my blood run cold. Jason was funneling city council bribes through a charity, Bethany's charity. The same one she used for photo ops with underprivileged children. They were literally stealing from the poor while posing as philanthropists. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Jason's voice. He's been gone a while. Think he's crying in there? I forwarded the emails to my personal account, cleared the browser history, and made it back to the dining room 30 seconds before Jason came looking for me. When I sat down, I picked up my wine glass and took a long drink. My father watched me carefully. "You all right, son? You look pale." "I'm fine," I said. "Actually, I've been thinking about what you said. About family values and commitment." I could see Bethany's interest peak. "You're right. I haven't been present. I've been dealing with personal failures." My mother leaned forward, her expression softening in that predatory way that meant she smelled weakness. "What kind of failures, dear?" This was the performance of my life. I needed them to think I was broken. Caroline and I separated 8 months ago. She took the girls to Richmond. I've been struggling. All true. But I let my voice crack just slightly, let them see the grief that was real. "I see now that maybe you were right about her. About all of it." Jason's expression shifted to something almost kind, the look a hunter gives wounded prey. "That's rough, man. Why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Pride, I guess." I looked down at my plate. "I didn't want to admit you'd all been right." Bethany reached across the table and patted my hand. "Oh, Vincent. You can always come back to the family. We take care of our own." My father nodded slowly. "There might be room in the company after all. If you're ready to leave that phase of your life behind you." I'd been recording the entire conversation on my phone, tucked in my jacket pocket. Every insult. Every laugh. Every word about Caroline and my daughters. Evidence of their character, time-stamped and saved. "I'd like that," I lied. "I'd really like that." I left the dinner with promises to think about joining the family business, with Bethany's fake hug still feeling like a spider crawling on my skin. The drive back to Charlotte was a blur of highway lights and racing thoughts. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex at 11 p.m., I'd made 6 phone calls. The first was to an investigative journalist I'd met 3 years ago at a community fundraiser. His name was Travis Coleman, and he specialized in corporate corruption and political bribery. I sent him the emails I'd forwarded from my father's computer. His response came in 4 minutes. "Holy shit. This is page 1 material. You sure you want to burn these bridges?" The second call was to my lawyer, a woman named Andrea Chen who'd helped me with my separation paperwork. "I need you to file divorce papers. And I need character witnesses who can testify about my family's treatment of Caroline and the girls." "Vincent, are you sure about this timing?" Her voice was careful, professional. "If you're about to go to war with your family, the timing is exactly right," I interrupted. "They think I'm weak. They think I'm broken. I need them to keep thinking that for 2 more weeks." The third call was the hardest. Caroline. We'd barely spoken in months beyond logistics about the girls. When she answered, her voice was guarded. "Vincent? It's late. I know. I'm sorry. I need to tell you something." And I told her everything. The dinner. The insults about her and our daughters. The will. The corruption I'd discovered. And finally, the apology I should have given her 2 years ago. "You were right about them. You were right about everything. And I should have protected you better." The silence stretched for so long I thought she'd hung up. "Then, what are you going to do?" Burn it all down, I said. But I need your help. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in strategic patience. I showed up to family dinners. I smiled at Jason's condescending advice about rebuilding my life. I let Bethany introduce me to her wealthy divorced friends as my brother who's finally getting his priorities straight. I met with my father's accountant and lawyers, playing the role of prodigal son eager to learn the business. All the while, the net was tightening. Travis Coleman's investigation moved quietly. He interviewed former employees of my father's development company, people who'd been forced to participate in shady land deals or lose their jobs. He obtained financial records through FOIA requests, tracing the money from Bethany's charity through 3 shell corporations before it landed in the pockets of 2 city councilmen. He documented everything. Andrea Chen worked a different angle. She reached out to Caroline's former colleagues, friends from our early marriage, even the wedding planner who'd witnessed my family's cruelty during our wedding preparation. She built a case not for divorce, but for full custody of Lily and Grace, with documented evidence of my family's toxic influence and my efforts to shield my daughters from it. But the piece that would hurt them most came from an unexpected source, Stuart Henshaw, the developer who'd been working with my father. Turns out, he had a conscience buried somewhere deep. When Travis approached him with evidence of the bribery scheme, he saw the writing on the wall. He agreed to wear a wire. Travis Coleman's article hit the front page of the Charlotte Observer at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. The headline, Prominent Real Estate Family Accused of Bribery, Fraud in Community Center Land Grab. Below it, a photo of my father and Jason at a charity gala, Bethany's Gala, smiling beside the very councilman they'd bribed. The article was surgical. It named names, cited documents, included excerpts from Stuart Henshaw's wire recording. It detailed the shell companies, the money trail, the systematic destruction of a community institution that served hundreds of families. It mentioned Bethany's charity by name, explaining how philanthropic funds had been diverted to political corruption. By 8 a.m., the FBI had contacted my father's lawyer. By 10 a.m., 2 city councilmen had resigned. By noon, Bethany's charity board had called an emergency meeting and removed her as director. My phone started ringing at 6:03 a.m. Jason first, you fucking traitor. You're dead to this family. Then Bethany, crying, how could you do this to us? To Mom? Then my mother, her voice ice, your father wants you to know you'll never inherit a single dollar. We're cutting you out of everything. I let them all go to voicemail. 6 months later, I stood outside the Riverside Community Center on a Saturday morning in May. Caroline walked up beside me, Lily and Grace running ahead to the playground. We weren't back together, not officially. But we were talking. Really talking. I was finally free. Thanks for watching, please subscribe.